The signs were all ready by the front door. I'd spent the past 3 days getting them just right, and now the real challenge began. I made my way upstairs to the master bedroom, yanked the bedclothes off, and struggled to wrestle the mattress off the queen-size frame. It was a messy job, half carrying, half sliding it down the stairs, but somehow I managed to get it outside. I set the mattress down on the lawn, right by Maple Avenue. Back inside, I tossed the bed slats and linens down the stairs, followed them down, and piled them next to the mattress. One more trip up to the bedroom. This time, I kicked apart the side rails and hustled them out the door. A quick glance at my watch told me it was almost 2:45 p.m., and I was running out of time. I had to hurry. I aimed to have everything finished by 3:30. Next came the headboard and footboard, and by 3:20, the bed was back together. Then I moved the kitchen table. It wasn't too heavy, so I was able to scoot it across the floor, turn it sideways, and angle it through the door, setting it down next to the bed on the lawn. The final item was the throw rug from the living room. I rolled it up and added it to the growing pile on the grass. With the signs in place, I felt a strange sense of accomplishment. I was done by 3:25, just 5 minutes to spare before Megan would be home. I walked to the middle of Maple Avenue, turned around and admired my work. It was so satisfying, I almost teared up. There it was, the marriage bed, the kitchen table, and the throw rug. The three places I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that Megan and her lover had used countless times over the last several months. And the signs were perfect, placed high enough so no one could easily reach them, but clear enough for anyone to read. I took a deep breath and started reading each one. The big sign in front of the furniture said, "These items are yours for the taking. They are no longer wanted in this house. If you can stomach the stench of adultery and broken vows, help yourself." The sign above the bed read, "On this bed, my wife repeatedly broke her wedding vows, throwing away our marriage by spending private time with her lover twice a week for the past 6 months. This afternoon was their most recent rendezvous, and the smell of their intimacy still clings to the sheets." Over the kitchen table, the sign stated, "My wife and her lover often shared intimate moments on this table, usually just before serving me dinner." And finally, the throw rug had its own sign. "My wife and her lover seem to prefer this rug for their fun." Attached to each sign was an 11x17-inch photo of Megan and her lover enjoying their time together on the respective piece of furniture. There was a fifth sign, placed slightly behind the table, that read, "My wife's lover is her boss, Gregory Stone, of Stone, Green and Rogers Realty. He's married with 2 children, though I doubt his wife knows about this. But she will soon." By 3:27, I was just about finished, and the crowd was already starting to gather. Neighbors were spilling into the street, some cars had stopped, and a few people were even on their phones, either calling others to come and see, or perhaps calling the police to have me arrested for causing a disturbance. I waved casually at the gathering crowd and then walked back inside, closing the door behind me. At precisely 3:30 p.m., I saw Megan's car turn the corner at the end of the block and slow down as she spotted the crowd around our house, looking at something on our lawn, chatting and laughing amongst themselves. Slowly, she pulled into the driveway of the home we'd shared for the past 6 years. I could see her eyes lock on the sight of the furniture and the signs in the front yard, no doubt drawn to the large photos of her and her boss, Gregory Stone, clearly enjoying each other's company. Even from her car, I could tell she was in shock, her eyes wide as she registered the scene. The noise of the crowd didn't even seem to matter. I distinctly heard her scream, "No! Oh God, no!" Her gaze finally shifted from the signs to the front window of the house, where she saw me standing. We locked eyes. She looked devastated, her face pale, tears streaming down her cheeks. It was as if she were silently asking me why this was happening. But I had the same question. I watched her for a few seconds, feeling a strange mix of anger and sorrow, then turned away and closed the curtains. I suppose this is the right moment to explain how things got to this point. My name is Jack Walker, and I met Megan in college during our junior year. A mutual friend had suggested we meet, and when we did, I was immediately smitten. Megan wasn't conventionally beautiful, but she had a charm that was impossible to resist. Those stunning blue eyes, light brown hair that fell just to her shoulders, and a petite figure that drove me wild. Despite her not knowing it at the time, I was completely hooked, and I never doubted that I would win her over. We started dating shortly after, and within weeks, we were inseparable. A month later, we took our relationship to the next level, and it felt like nothing I had ever experienced before. I was absolutely obsessed with Megan, and she with me. Neither of us was inexperienced, but neither were we experts. We just enjoyed each other's company and every moment spent together. Every new thing we tried seemed to become our favorite. It's safe to say we were as in love as two people could possibly be. We married right after graduation and moved into our first home, a condo in Bridgeport. Megan went on to get her real estate license and joined one of the top agencies in the area, while I used my finance degree to land a solid position with Horizon Investments. We settled into what I thought was the perfect life. For the next 7 years, we built an incredible life together. First, we lived in the condo, and then, as our incomes grew, we bought our dream home and started a family. Oliver came first, now 5 years old, followed by Emma, who is 3. Megan and I adored those kids more than anything, and our life revolved around them. So where did it all go wrong? I wish I had noticed the signs earlier. But I didn't. I was living in a world of pure love and trust, blissfully unaware. It wasn't until an unexpected event revealed the truth. Our son Oliver had gotten sick at school. It was a Wednesday, and just before noon, I received a call from the school nurse telling me Oliver wasn't feeling well. At the time, I was in the middle of a meeting, so I asked the nurse to contact Megan instead. But when the nurse called Megan's office, she was told Megan would be out for the day. She tried calling our house, but there was no answer. So, the nurse left a message and then called Megan's cell, only to reach voicemail. Frustrated, she called me. It was important that Oliver be picked up immediately, so I excused myself from my meeting and drove to the school as quickly as I could. When I arrived at home with Oliver, I was surprised to see a car parked in my spot next to Megan's. Immediately, a sickening feeling settled in my stomach. Something wasn't right. I told myself, no, it couldn't be. Megan wouldn't. But the presence of that strange car told me otherwise. I grabbed my phone and called Ben Harris, my counterpart in the security division. Ben was a top-notch engineer and one of my closest friends since high school. I told him I needed to see him urgently, and he mentioned he was already heading my way to drop off some documents to be copied. He promised he'd be in my office in about half an hour. I told Sarah, my assistant, that Ben could come straight into my office when he arrived. True to his word, he knocked on my door just 20 minutes later. "What's up, Jack?" he asked, stepping inside and shutting the door behind him. "I need your help, Ben," I replied, trying to keep my voice from betraying my emotions. "Anything, Jack. What's going on?" "I just caught my wife and her boss having private time in my house. In my bed." "Damn, Jack, you're kidding." "I wish I were," I said, my throat tightening. I had to pick up Oliver from school, and when I got home, there was a strange car parked in the garage. I snuck inside, and there they were in our bedroom, on our bed. I couldn't believe it, but it's true. That shouldn't happen to anyone, man. What did you do when you confronted them? I didn't confront them, I admitted. I wanted to, but Oliver was sick, and I couldn't risk him seeing that. So I made him wait in the car while I tried to process what was happening. After that, I just left quietly and took him to my mom's house. "So, what now?" Ben asked, leaning in. "I'm not sure yet, but I need proof. I need audio and video of them the next time they do it. And that's where you come in. I need small security cameras and mics, something I can hide in several rooms in the house to record everything." Ben gave me a thoughtful look. "I think I can help you with that, Jack. But how do you know if there'll be a next time? Maybe this was a one-off, and things got out of hand." "No chance, Ben," I replied coldly. "They talked about how they've been doing this regularly for the last 7 months. I don't know if they always use my house, but I'm betting they do. Hotels leave paper trails neither of them can afford, and Megan's boss's wife stays home. That leaves only my house available when I'm at work and the kids are at school." We talked for a few more minutes about the logistics, then got down to business. Ben told me he had access to a new line of wireless miniature cameras and microphones, perfect for what I needed. They work with my laptop or home computer. He also had a small voice-activated recorder that could be placed under Megan's car seat to capture any conversation she might have while driving. It wouldn't capture both sides of the conversation, but it was better than nothing. I'll pick everything up from your office tomorrow, I told him, already planning my next steps. Thanks, Ben. The drive home that night was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I had no idea how I was going to face Megan and act like nothing had happened. My mind raced with a million different thoughts, and I knew the best course of action was to make her believe I wasn't feeling well, which was the truth. When I picked up Oliver from my mom's, I could feel the weight of what I had just discovered pressing down on me. When I got home, Megan was in the kitchen cooking dinner. The moment she saw Oliver with me, her expression went from calm to frantic. "Where have you been?" she asked, her voice tight. "Why didn't you call to tell me Oliver was sick?" "I just got the message from the school nurse on the answering machine," I replied. "They tried to call you, but for some reason, you weren't available. They tried your office, but they said you weren't there. Then they called the house phone, left a message, and even called your cell, but it went straight to voicemail." "Oh, God," she muttered, pressing a hand to her forehead. "I must have accidentally turned my phone off while I was showing houses. I didn't have a minute to myself all day." "Yeah, I'm sure of that," I thought but didn't say. "Too busy spending time with your boss to bother with your son." Megan hugged Oliver, telling him how sorry she was, and helped him to his bed. As much as I hated her, I couldn't deny that she did love her kids. The truth was, I had become the obstacle to her happiness. Well, that was about to change. After getting Oliver settled, Megan came back to the kitchen to finish making soup for him and dinner for the rest of us. "I'm not feeling well either," I said. "I think I'll sleep in the guest room tonight, just in case I'm contagious." Megan felt my forehead with her palm. "You do feel a little clammy, honey, and you look pale." I didn't respond. "Yeah, pale and clammy. That's what happens when you catch your wife cheating with another man in your bed." Without saying another word, I turned and climbed the stairs, heading straight for the master suite. It killed me to step into that room, but I needed to grab my shaving gear, toothbrush, and clothes for work the next day. As I entered the room, I noticed the window was open, and the smell of their encounter had vanished. The bed was made, and I realized she must have changed the sheets. I wanted to throw up. All I could picture was her boss, Gregory Stone, having his way with her, while Megan told him how great it was and how she belonged to him, and him alone. Rage surged through me, but I forced it down. I had to stay calm. I couldn't allow my emotions to cloud my judgment. I would have my revenge, and I would make sure they both paid for what they did to me. I grabbed the things I needed and went to the guest bedroom, closing the door behind me. I stripped down to my underwear and climbed into bed. My body felt numb. I wanted to cry, but I refused to let myself. I had a mission, and I couldn't afford to let emotions get in the way. For hours, I lay in the dark, unable to sleep. Megan came in after putting the kids to bed. I pretended to be asleep. She touched my forehead briefly before leaving, closing the door quietly behind her. The next morning, I got up early, showered, and left the house before she woke up. It probably seemed strange to her, but I would just tell her I needed to make up for the lost hours from the day before when I wasn't feeling well. Honestly, at this point, I didn't care what she thought. I wanted out of what I once believed was a beautiful marriage, built on love, loyalty, honesty, and commitment. How tragically wrong I had been. I arrived at work before anyone else and started making coffee. As I sat down, I began laying out my plans. I knew I had to cancel our joint credit cards, transfer half of our joint accounts to a separate bank under my name, and change my will and life insurance to remove Megan as my beneficiary. Ethan and Emma would be my sole beneficiaries. It should have been harder to do, but deep down, I knew it would get much harder before it was all over. I also knew I needed to find a solid divorce attorney to keep Megan from taking everything in the settlement. This was a no-fault divorce state, so cheating wouldn't impact the financial aspect. But it might help me get custody of my kids. Megan had proven how unimportant I was to her, but she was a good mother. I didn't want to keep her away from Oliver and Emma. I just wanted joint custody, so I could stay an important part of their lives too. I tried with all my might not to think about our sex life, and how humiliating it was to hear my wife tell her boss how superior he was to me in every way. If I allowed myself to dwell on that now, I'd start to doubt myself, and I couldn't afford to do that. That pain would come later, when it hit me full force. I knew it would destroy me, but for now, I had to stay focused on the task ahead. With my list finished, I called Ben. He was at the office and confirmed he'd have everything I needed by noon. He even offered to come with me to install everything and make sure I knew how to use it. I tried to focus on the paperwork at my desk when my cell phone rang. It was Megan. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Her voice, normally a comfort, was nothing but a precursor to the burning anger I felt. How are you feeling?" she asked in the sweetest voice she could muster. Still a little sick to my stomach, I told her, my voice as flat as I could make it. "I'm worried about you, honey. You left this morning before I could check on you." "I had a lot of things to take care of," I said. "Came in early." "Well, take care of yourself. You and the kids are my whole life." Her words were laced with lies, but I didn't call her out. "I know you don't really mean that," I thought. "If you're up to it tonight," she added, "I think I can think of a good way to make everything better for you." I almost laughed out loud at her audacity. The liar. I can't believe I ever fell for her lies. I had nothing to say to her, so I just replied, "Yeah, we'll see how I feel." I could hardly be bothered to fake illness today, not when I knew exactly what was going on. After hanging up the phone with Megan, I called Ben Harris. He confirmed everything was ready, and we set a time to meet at the loading dock. We loaded his van with all the equipment, and by 2:30 p.m., we had everything installed. Ben worked quickly. We bugged the living room, kitchen, guest bedroom, and of course the master suite, taking extra care with the latter, placing 4 cameras in strategic spots to capture everything that happened there. As a final precaution, we set up a camera and microphone in the master bathroom, just in case Megan and her boss decided to shower together after their affair. The cameras were motion-activated, so everything would be automatically recorded as soon as they entered the rooms. With everything set up, we installed the software on my home office PC and created a secure folder to store the footage. It felt surreal to know the system was now in place, ready to collect the damning evidence. That night was the toughest night I'd faced. I couldn't use the "I'm sick" excuse again. So after dinner, when the kids were in bed, I followed Megan to our bedroom as usual. I turned away from her and pretended to be asleep. She seemed perturbed by my behavior. Our usual ritual of cuddling before bed was absent. She spooned against me, her arm draping over me. "Is something wrong, my love?" she asked softly. "No, Megan," I replied, trying to mask the fury bubbling beneath the surface. "You've always satisfied me. I just wonder sometimes if I'm man enough for you." She paused, then asked with genuine concern, "Tom, why would you say something like that? You've always been enough for me. My life would end if something happened to you. I would never need anyone else as long as I have you. You are my perfect partner." "Yeah, you said that a million times," I thought, but I didn't respond. "I guess that's just hard to believe sometimes," I said, my voice flat. "What's wrong with you, Tom?" she pressed, sounding worried. "Nothing," I muttered. "Just tired." And I closed my eyes, trying to force myself to sleep. Sometime later, I heard her softly crying. I didn't feel an ounce of pity for her, but I couldn't help but wonder. Was she crying because of guilt for what she was doing, or was she upset because I'd been mean to her again? I got up before she did, eager to continue my mission. I installed the voice recorder under her car seat and double-checked the footage from the night before. Everything had been captured clearly, even in the low-light conditions of our bedroom. The system was flawless. When Megan got up, she was a little snippy, telling me that I'd said some things the night before that had hurt her feelings. Then she quickly changed gears, giving me a peck on the cheek, and her mood shifted back to her usual cheeriness. I knew it wasn't for me. It was because of her plans for that afternoon with her lover. "Good morning," I said, pouring her a cup of coffee. "I'm going to be in my office all day." She told me she had a few homes to show in the afternoon and was confident she was going to make a sale. "But I'll be home in time to pick up the kids," she added with a smile, her eyes already distant, thinking about her lover. I kissed her cheek, barely holding back my disgust. I could feel the weight of the lie she was living. I started toward the garage door when she called out. "Tom, you forgot to tell me you love me," she said almost too sweetly. "You know how important it is to me to hear that every morning." I stopped and glanced at her, feeling my gut churn. "How important it is to you?" I didn't say anything, but I could feel the words pressing on my chest. "Sorry, Megan. I guess by now you should know how I feel about you. Just a lot on my mind, that's all." She smiled, and waved it off. I forgive you this time, but don't forget, okay? I won't, I muttered as I left the house. I should have said something. Yeah, I'll tell some girl I love her if I ever find a girl I can trust enough to love. Megan had told me she would be showing homes all afternoon, which made it clear that her afternoon would likely be spent with her true love, the one she'd chosen over me. It was time to stop playing games. I was done. I just wanted this whole mess over. The morning passed slowly as I worked in my office, though I kept glancing at my watch, waiting. At noon, I told Sarah I'd be gone for a few hours and set my plan in motion. I checked out a company van and parked across the street from my house, watching as the minutes ticked by. Finally, almost at 1 p.m., I saw Megan's car pull into the driveway, open the garage door, and park in her usual spot. She got out of the car and went inside, leaving the garage door open behind her. I immediately knew what was happening. 10 minutes later, the same car I'd seen today, I caught them together, drove up the driveway and into the garage. I could see Megan's lover, Gregory Stone, getting out of the car, taking my place, just as he had done in my wife's life. The garage door closed behind him. I couldn't help but admire their boldness. They had guts to meet in my house, my bed, and carry on with their affair so openly. It was like they both believed they were untouchable. But that belief would soon be shattered. They had been caught, and soon they'd care a whole lot. By 2:30, I saw Gregory leave, the garage door opening again as he backed his car out. 15 minutes later, Megan did the same, closing the garage door behind her. I knew she would be picking up the kids soon, so I quickly parked my van in the garage and headed straight to my office. I didn't waste any time reviewing all the footage. I just needed to make sure the evidence was safely stored on my hard drive. After 10 minutes, I had enough. The footage wasn't a complete repeat of the last time, but it was graphic. They started in the kitchen, of all places, where I ate my meals. They laughed, discussing how many times they'd done it there, wondering if I'd ever figured it out. It made me sick to my stomach. Afterward, they moved to our bedroom, though I noticed her boss suggested they do it in Emma's room, just to mix things up. Megan flat out refused. Absolutely not, she snapped. I'll let you rub my face in it, but the kids' rooms are off limits. I found that small victory odd, her standing up for some semblance of principle, even though she'd been unfaithful to me. The last thing they did was on the throw rug by the fireplace in the living room. It didn't make any sense to me why they'd moved there, but they did. When they finished, I found it strange that she didn't change the sheets, but I assumed she'd clean it all up when she brought the kids home. After all, she had plenty of time. I usually didn't return before 5:30 p.m., and she would have a couple of hours to air things out. Knowing I had what I needed, I shut the system down and left the house, not even bothering to check the mess they'd left behind. The bitterness still clung to me as I looked at the marriage bed, now tainted with the evidence of Rachel's betrayal. I had seen enough, and though my heart had hardened towards her, a sickening feeling remained. But that sickness soon morphed into a burning anger. I think I even smiled as the realization hit me. I was about to bring hell down on both of their heads. Back at work, I filled Greg in on everything I'd witnessed. Like me, he couldn't understand how Rachel, who had always presented herself as so loving and devoted, could sink so low. Not only had she broken our vows, but she had rubbed my face in it, openly praising her lover and comparing him to me. He was a better partner, more of a man, the only one who could truly complete her. Those words twisted in my gut, dragging me into an abyss of pain and despair. I knew I had to climb out of it, for my own sanity, and to finish what I had started, destroying them both. Greg suggested I contact the law firm the company used to find a good divorce lawyer. I called a corporate lawyer I knew, and he gave me 3 names of reputable divorce attorneys who were known for protecting husbands' rights. The first lawyer was preparing for retirement and couldn't take on any new clients, but the second one agreed to meet me the next afternoon at 2 p.m. With that taken care of, I turned my focus to securing my finances, canceling credit cards, changing beneficiaries, and moving money around. The next morning, as Rachel prepared dinner and the kids worked on their homework, I steeled myself for what I knew I had to do next. She looked beautiful in her red sundress, and for a brief moment, I was overcome with a pang of longing, as if I could still feel the warmth of our past together. But that feeling quickly passed, replaced by a cold resolve. She smiled and greeted me with her usual cheerfulness. "Hey baby, how's my man? I hope you had as good a day as I did," she said, her voice light, betraying nothing of the dark undercurrent I knew was there. I gave her a half-smile, less enthusiastic than usual. "Actually, my day was interesting, not great, but I did discover a few things I wasn't aware of." Her eyes flickered, but she recovered quickly. "Why was yours so great?" she asked, sounding curious. "I'm sure spending time with the world's greatest partner made your day," I replied, knowing full well the reason behind her good mood. She beamed. "I made a sale today, the first one this week. I think I'll have another one on Saturday when I show a few more homes." "Guess this must have been your lucky day," I said flatly. "Anything else special about today? Meet anyone interesting or special?" She gave me a strange look. "No, honey, just the usual. Work to get through, then home to be with my family. You know that's where my heart is." I nodded, my jaw tight. "Yeah, your heart's definitely somewhere else." I turned and headed up to our bedroom, intending to change. As I did, I noticed the sheets had been changed and the room aired out. There was still water on the shower floor. When I returned to the kitchen, I casually mentioned it. "Did you shower this afternoon?" I asked, watching her reaction. She jumped, her face flushing with guilt. "No, of course not, silly. Why would I do that?" she stammered. "I don't know," I said, my voice smooth and mocking. "Maybe someone snuck into the house to have a tryst with their lover. Maybe they showered after they'd had a really good session." For several seconds, she stood frozen, her back to me as she pulled lettuce apart for a salad. Then she continued her task, her voice strained. "Tom, you certainly have a vivid imagination." "Yeah," I replied, "or maybe it's ESP. Sometimes I think I can read people's minds." She half laughed, but it sounded forced. "Well, if you could read my mind, you'd see how much I love you," she said, but it was clear she wasn't convincing herself, let alone me. I turned and left for my office. "I'll be in my office. Let me know when dinner's ready." The tension in the room was palpable as I retreated. Dinner was quiet. Rachel seemed surprised when I took her usual seat at the table and made her sit in my spot. She didn't ask why, but I saw the unease flash across her face. "Why the change?" she asked, a frown forming. "You always eat in that seat." "Just a change of scenery," I said, trying to sound casual, but the meaning hung heavily in the air. She didn't eat much, mostly pushing food around her plate. The kids talked about their day, but Rachel and I barely exchanged words, making only polite comments. Afterward, I retreated to my office, leaving her to clean up. I spent the next few hours reviewing the footage from that day, selecting stills that would make the most impact. I printed them out, preparing them for the final phase of my plan. I'd create signs with the images, designed to publicly expose her betrayal. All I had left to do was finalize the divorce paperwork, complete my financial arrangements, and wait for the next time Rachel and her lover met. Later that night, Rachel was already asleep, or pretending to be, by the time I climbed into bed. I didn't know if my actions that evening had gotten under her skin, but I felt sure of one thing. She was nervous now. Saturday was the day I would finally destroy them. It was the day Rachel and her lover would meet again. It was the day I would make sure they both paid for what they'd done to me. The next morning, I rose early and showered, leaving before Rachel woke up. I had too much to do. My meeting with the lawyer wasn't until 2 p.m., so I had plenty of time to get things in order. First stop, HR. I changed the beneficiary on my life insurance and 401k to Ethan and Lily. The woman who helped me gave me strange looks, but I didn't care. I wasn't here to explain myself to anyone. Next, I canceled all our joint credit cards, getting one issued in my name only. After that, I went to the bank and transferred half of our joint accounts to my own account. I wasn't touching the house just yet. I figured the courts would let Rachel stay there with the kids, and I'd leave that to the lawyer to handle. At 2 p.m., I met with the attorney. He was a likable enough guy, but he was cautious, warning me that in a no-fault state, Rachel would likely get custody of the kids and the house. Even with proof of infidelity, the courts wouldn't favor me. "I want the petition filed and ready by Monday morning," I told him, trying to keep my voice steady. "And don't worry about Rachel getting away with everything." I'm pretty sure I can convince her to go along with what I want." He didn't look happy, but he bowed to my demands, agreeing to have everything ready to serve Rachel by Monday. I also had him prepare papers to file against her lover, Stephen Rogers, and the company he owned. They were going down too. When I got home that evening, I was cold toward Rachel. I had no patience left. The whole charade was over. It was time to face the fallout, but at least I wouldn't be alone in my pain anymore. We had a quiet dinner, and after cleaning up, I retreated to my man cave to finish my work. I printed the photos of Rachel and Stephen, then carefully crafted signs that would expose their affair for all to see. Finally, I wrote a letter to Stephen Rogers' wife, enclosing the prints of the photos. I knew the pain it would cause, but I couldn't let them get away with destroying my family. I was using the signs and photographs as weapons now, telling her that I had plenty more video evidence to supply her with in case she decided to divorce her husband, like I was divorcing my wife. After 10 a.m., I went to our bedroom to make sure Rachel was asleep. Then I made my way to her car. I retrieved the voice-activated recorder from under her seat, rewound it, and listened to the conversations I had already heard before. This time, however, there was one that caught my attention. It was a message to Stephen. Thanks again for this afternoon. Me too. I always miss you after we're together. Yes. Oh my God, what a whole week together would be heaven. Yes, maybe soon we can make up a real estate convention we absolutely must attend. You give me enough to drive me crazy. Yes, only you. You know, if I didn't have to give Tom some time every once in a while to keep him happy, I'd be your exclusive property. Hearing her words didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. It was almost liberating. Maybe there was hope for me yet. Little did she know, she was already his exclusive property forever, and I was 2 days away from destroying everything she had worked for, everything she thought she could keep. Revenge was a powerful medicine. I replaced the tape with a new one, slid the recorder back under her seat, and left, knowing that it would catch every moment of her upcoming collapse. It would record evidence of her downfall the moment the truth hit. That night, sleep eluded me. Not because of heartbreak. No, I had passed that point a long time ago. It was the anticipation of everything that was about to unfold. Tomorrow, everything would change. For the last time, I got out of bed while Rachel continued to sleep. I stood there for a moment, looking down at the woman who had once been the love of my life, the mother of my children, the woman I thought I'd spend forever with. I felt a strange sting in my chest as I realized that I'd slept with her for the last time. Never again would we share a bed. Never again would we talk about the future we no longer had. Turning away from her, I wondered if she had any idea of the price she would soon pay for betraying me. She probably didn't, but she would soon. I showered, left the house, and stopped for breakfast at a diner. I made a quick stop at work to let my assistant know I'd be out for the day. Then I called Greg. I filled him in on what was about to go down. He wished me luck and told me to be careful, reminding me to let him know how everything went. My next stop was my lawyer's office. I checked to make sure everything was in place to have Rachel and Stephen served the following day. I had a few more calls to make, and then I reached Rachel. I told her I would pick up the kids from school since my mom had volunteered to take them for the long weekend. She was thrilled and sounded like her sweet self when she said we could spend the day together on Saturday. Sure, I told her, though I was counting the minutes until I could escape her voice again. I couldn't stand hearing her anymore. By 11:30 a.m., I was parked a block away from the house, hidden from view, waiting. I could see any car that pulled into the driveway, and I knew exactly what was coming. Rachel and Stephen had their routine, predictable as ever. At 11:50 a.m., I saw Rachel's car pull in, followed 5 minutes later by Stephen's. The bait had been taken. I should have felt pain, knowing they were in my home, in my marriage bed, but I didn't. The hurt had been replaced by a cold calm. I could picture every detail in my mind, imagining them together, but it didn't move me the way it once would have. It was almost like watching a low-budget film. Predictable, no plot, but with one hell of an ending. At 1:50 p.m., I saw Stephen's car back out of the driveway, followed by Rachel 10 minutes later. I watched as she applied fresh lipstick in the rearview mirror, no doubt unaware of the storm I was about to unleash on her life. When they were gone, I pulled into the garage and closed the door behind me. The work I had planned was about to begin. I went to my office and checked the tape. It was all there, the insults, the comparisons. She had told Stephen everything. How much better he was than I could ever be. How he completed her in ways I never could. This time, it didn't sting. This time I didn't care. I downloaded the footage onto my hard drive, then began my preparations. I took the handmade signs I had made, printed with photographs of their affair, and placed them near the front door where I could easily grab them. Next, I packed a bag with clothes and a toothbrush for the kids, placing it in the car. My only regret was that they would be hurt by this, but I couldn't take responsibility for Rachel's actions. She was the one who had chosen to destroy our family. At 2:15 p.m., I picked up Ethan and Lily from school. I told them they were going to spend the weekend with Grandma, which thrilled them to no end. I dropped them off at my mom's house, then headed back to the scene of the destruction. It was time. I executed my plan, setting up everything as I had envisioned it. The bed, the table, the rug. All of it was out on the lawn, a public display of my wife's betrayal. The neighbors watched, and Rachel's world was about to come crashing down. By the time Rachel came home, she was going to see what I had done. I didn't hear from her that night, though I half expected a phone call. There was, however, a call late in the evening from her cell phone, but when I answered, no one spoke. It was just silence. I wasn't surprised. I was sure she was lost in her own shame. The police arrived about an hour later. They were sympathetic, but told me I had to take down the signs or face charges for disturbing the peace and public indecency. I complied, though the damage was done. My message had been delivered, and I knew that Rachel had seen it. That night, I drank a fifth of Jack Daniels and passed out, drunk and numb, but with a strange sense of power. Despite the sorrow, despite the loneliness, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: control. The next morning, I woke up with a killer hangover, but it didn't matter. The deed had been done. I opened the curtains and saw that the bed, rug, and table were gone. All that remained was the mattress and stained sheets. Around noon, I received a call from my lawyer. He told me that both Rachel and Stephen had been served at work. Rachel had screamed when she was served, collapsing to the floor, while Stephen stormed around the office, calling me names and threatening to kill me. His partners had fired him on the spot, invoking the company's morals clause. And to add insult to injury, Stephen's wife had already seen the letter and photos and was filing for divorce. Later, I learned from a colleague that after Stephen was escorted out of the office, everyone turned their backs on Rachel. She was left on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. She eventually pulled herself together and left, but no one knew where she went. The following day, Rachel called. She sounded broken, asking about the kids and whether they knew. I assured her they didn't, and I wouldn't tell them anything about the details. She thanked me, then asked if she could come by to pick up some of her things. I agreed, but told her I'd leave for a few hours while she took what she needed. When she asked if we could talk, I told her I had nothing to say to her. She started crying again. "I'm sorry, Tom," she sobbed. "You have to know how sorry I am. I never meant to hurt you." I couldn't help but laugh. "How can you say you're sorry, Rachel? How can you claim you never meant to hurt me when you spent months with him, tearing me down, belittling me, telling him how much better he was than I ever could be? You said he completed you. He was the only one who could." "No, Tom, I never said that," she pleaded. "I didn't mean it. I just built him up to make him feel better. I never meant any of it. I was done. I have the recordings, Rachel. Every degrading word you said about me, every comparison to him. It's all there. I didn't mean it," she whispered. "I just wanted to make him feel good because his wife was always putting him down. I felt sorry for him." "Let me get this straight," I said, unable to contain the bitterness. "You tore me down to make him feel better. You spent months with him, physically, emotionally, just to make him feel good about himself." "Yes, Tom," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was stupid. Stupid? I almost spat. You destroyed everything. Our family, our marriage. And now, you're telling me it was just for fun? For dirty time?" Her voice cracked. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I felt nothing but disgust." "You didn't mean to hurt me? You've been hurting me for months, Rachel. And now you want me to forgive you? To let it all go? Please, Tom," she begged. "Please, if you can find it in your heart, I'll do anything. I'll prove I love you. Only you. Please." I didn't hesitate. "I don't love you anymore. And I don't have to leave you. You left me the moment you chose him over me, the moment you let him tear me apart. I hung up, feeling a sense of finality settle over me. This was the end. No more pain. No more lies. Just the destruction she had brought on herself. I cannot wait to have you out of my life. Do you really think I want anything to do with you after you gave yourself to him and promised yourself to him forever? I wouldn't touch you if you were the last person on earth. The only reason I will have anything to do with you at all is because of the kids. Ethan and Lily. Remember them? The children we created when we were still a family. The words came out cold, cutting through the silence like a blade. You owe them too. I want to spare them as much pain as possible, but I don't want to spare you anything. In fact, I want you to feel all the pain you've heaped on me. You and your lover Stephen both deserve it, and I want you to feel it. Rachel's voice trembled as she fought to stay composed. Why did you tell his wife, Tom? That was unfair. I almost laughed bitterly. Unfair? Unfair. I scoffed, disbelief and rage bubbling beneath my calm facade. Are you completely delusional, Rachel? What you did to me and our children is unfair. Why do you think I told her? Number one, he destroyed my family by being with my wife over and over again. Number two, he took possession of the one person on this earth I thought was mine to have and hold. And he made you tell him how wonderful he was and how miserable I was. Number three, his wife needed to know what an absolute miserable failure of a human being she's married to. What she does with that information is up to her. They have children, Rachel. So do I. And I'll be damned if I let this go without making sure they're protected. Not just from you, but from him too. She was quiet for a moment, the reality of what I was saying settling in. I don't want a divorce, Tom. I'll fight for our marriage. I'll do whatever it takes. I felt my chest tighten, the frustration mounting. There's nothing to fight for. I would honestly rather be dead than shackled to you for the rest of my life. You don't get to destroy everything and then ask me to pretend it didn't happen. She faltered, sounding smaller. I know you still love me, Tom. You can't just turn it off over one thing like this. I shook my head, disgusted. My God, Rachel, you are completely out of your mind. Did you even read the divorce petition you were served with? She didn't answer right away, so I pressed on. No. Why should you? Let me tell you what it says. As long as you agree to joint custody of the kids, you can stay in the house and get half of all our worldly goods. You'll still have a roof over your head and your share of everything. I let that sink in, then added the final blow. But here's what I'm telling you now. If you don't sign the papers and agree to these favorable terms, I will share the videos of you and your dumb lover with every person you've ever known. Your parents, your brother, his kids, anyone I can think of. You think you've suffered enough? You haven't seen anything yet. I heard her breathing quicken. You wouldn't do that, Tom. You can't hate me that much. I leaned back in my chair, savoring the calmness of my own voice. Oh, Rachel, you're wrong. I can and I will. And there's nothing on earth that will stop me. Fight me, and I will ruin your life. I hate you more than you can ever imagine. She pleaded with me then, her voice breaking, desperate. Please, Tom, don't do this. Sign the papers. Let me make it up to you. Let's fix this for the kids. But I was done. No, Rachel. It's over. Sign the papers. I hung up before she could say anything more. She signed the divorce papers, and 6 months later, it was final. Rachel stayed in the house with Ethan and Lily, and I moved into a condo a few blocks away. At least we were in the same school district, so the kids' lives weren't completely upended, though they both struggled. Ethan told me that their mother admitted her mistake and that our marriage couldn't be salvaged. Still, we both assured the kids that we'd always be there for them. I never found out what Rachel told her family about the breakup, but since they still spoke to me, I guess she didn't paint me as the villain. As for my mother, she said it was just something neither Rachel nor I could get past. One final piece of unfinished business. I retrieved the recorder from Rachel's car. The voice track was haunting, and I couldn't help but replay it. As Rachel drove home that day, she called Stephen to thank him for their wonderful afternoon. She then said she thought I might be getting suspicious and suggested they lay low for a few weeks, just until she was sure the coast was clear. When she arrived home, she saw the people standing in the street, gazing at our yard. That's when she realized what I had done. Her scream echoed through the recorder. "What did you do, Tom? What did you do?" Then came the sobbing, the desperate cries. "Oh, God, what did I do? Please, God, make it all go away." It wasn't over for her. She called Stephen, her voice filled with panic. "He knows, Stephen. He knows everything. Tom knows everything." Then, nothing but uncontrollable sobs. It's been over a year now since the fires of hell washed over all of us. Slowly, I've started picking up the pieces again. I'm not dating, and I probably won't for a while. The thought of going through all that again scares me. Ethan told me Rachel went on a date once, but came home crying and hasn't dated since. Rachel found a job as a receptionist at a retirement village and gave up on real estate for now. I have no idea if she still talks to Stephen Rogers, and frankly, I don't care. Stephen and his wife are divorced, and he's had trouble finding work. The reputation of a man who destroys families doesn't exactly make him a hot commodity. As for Stephen's former company, they made a generous offer to avoid a lawsuit, and I accepted. It's all behind me now, and I'm focused on my kids and their future. Maybe one day, my future will matter to me too. But for now, it's about Ethan and Lily. And the pain Rachel brought into our lives? She can live with that.